Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host of this episode of the Networking RX podcast. Thanks again for listening, subscribing, and referring others. Before we get started, I want to remind you that we're looking to add quality people to our stable of franchisees. This is a unique franchise opportunity in that it's geared for an aspiring entrepreneur or professional to add on to what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, our franchisees operate the AmSpirit Business Connections program. The rest of their week, they're accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. Interested? Contact me. Know someone's interested? Have them contact me. There's an email in the show notes, or use the one we provide at the end of this podcast. Several weeks ago, I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's not terribly unusual, and they wanted to connect, and we did connect. I'm pretty liberal with respect to connecting with people. I usually will respond and simply ask, how is it you heard of me? But I'm pretty open to connecting with other people. As it turned out, this was an individual that I was connected with through a mutual contact, somebody I know relatively well. And I will leave names out of this for obvious reasons, as you will see. And so we connected, and then shortly, within a week or so after us connecting, that particular person that I connected with, and the new person, emailed me. Now, for those of you who don't know, when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you have the ability, you have access to their email. You just simply need to click on their contact information, and it's right there. Everybody who's on LinkedIn, it's all connected somehow or another to an email. That's how LinkedIn communicates with you. So once you're a first level connection with somebody, you have access to that information. So at any rate, I got an email from this particular individual saying, hey, I've looked at your profile. I've talked to the person that we know, mutually know, and I would really love an opportunity to talk with you. I would really love an opportunity to learn your story, see who you know, see how we might be able to help each other, see how you might be able to help me. Fine. That sounds great. In all honesty, that's how I use LinkedIn. I connect with people. I get to learn about people, and then we'll take it outside of LinkedIn, have phone conversations or email conversations outside of LinkedIn, and that's how business gets done. So I'm certainly open to having a conversation with somebody under those terms. And I get those requests all the time. I make those requests. And those generally, I don't want to say fills my week, but that's how I make a lot of great new contacts, is that very same way. Connect with somebody on LinkedIn, reach out to them, see if they'd want to have a phone conversation, talk a little bit via email, and you start to develop relationships and realize how you can mutually benefit one another. So anyhow, scheduled a time to talk to this particular individual. As it so happened, they provided their phone number, and I put it on my calendar. We had a date and time set up. I put it on my calendar, and when that date and time came, I called. It was on my calendar. It was scheduled for us. I called, and there was no answer. I left a message and kind of went on with my day. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. If somebody's not there, I'm of course my initial inclination is I'm annoyed. This was on my calendar. I could have scheduled something else, but I try and back myself off of that and say, okay, maybe there's something there. Maybe something happened. I hope they're okay. I hope they're not sick. I hope they weren't in an accident. I hope there wasn't something dire on their end that prevented them from being on the call. So I do try to express my concern. I try and take my mind there, because 9 times out of 10, people just don't miss calls. There's something that occurred. And I think we've all had those things in our lives where something comes up. At any rate, a couple days later, I heard back from the person, and they really didn't remark at all as to why they weren't there when I had called, but just said, yeah, I would really like to talk with you. I've got a busy stretch coming up, and I would like to get on the phone with you and learn a little bit, and all the other things that they had said before such and such a date. Okay, fine. They are connected to a mutual connection. I really like this mutual connection. This mutual connection is somebody that I find really reliable. So by association, let's schedule another call. But I told the individual this time, I'm like, okay, well, here's my number. You call me at the appointed day and time. And again, I didn't bring up any of the, hey, you stood me up on the last call. I just let all that stuff pass and just figured, okay, just going to move on. There's no sense in wasting a whole lot of energy trying to be angry or make a point with respect to what had happened. Let's just move forward. At any rate, when the day and time came and the phone call was supposed to come in, it didn't. It didn't happen at all. I didn't at that point respond at all. I didn't say, "Hey, are you okay?" or anything like that. It's kind of the old adage: "Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me." I probably shouldn't have scheduled that second call. There's probably some of you out there are saying, "Well, why did you waste time with that second call?" Yeah, in hindsight, I shouldn't have. Often the second call works out. Most times it doesn't even get to the second call the first call happens, but occasionally things do happen, but the second call generally works out. I got burned a second time. What this story underscores and what this particular episode is about is reliability or lack of reliability. The theme that continues to run through pretty much every podcast episode we've done so far is that networking is really about relationships, and networking relationships are built on being known, being liked, and being trusted. And reliability goes to the heart of being trusted. What I have told my kids time and again, they probably roll their eyes if they're listening to this, but you're either reliable 100% of the time or you're unreliable. I mean, stop and think about it. If 99% of the time you're reliable and 1% of the time you're unreliable, you're really unreliable 100% of the time, because nobody knows when that 1% of unreliability is going to manifest itself or reveal itself. So you need to be reliable in every instance. You need to, if you set a call, be on that call. If something happens, let somebody know. If you tell somebody you're going to have there's a particular deadline, you're going to do something for them, you need to come through as you've said you're going to come through. And if you don't endeavor to do that in every single instance, you really put a big question mark in everybody's mind as to whether or not you are actually reliable. So you're either reliable 100% of the time or you're not reliable. This is what I see with respect to reliability. If you're not reliable, if you're unreliable, it's really everything if you stop and think about it. You could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're unreliable, that talent really doesn't amount to anything. You could be the hardest working person in the world, and as hard as you might work, if you're unreliable, it really doesn't amount to anything. You could have tons of connections, but if you're unreliable, it really doesn't amount to anything. The way I look at it, it's like simple math. It's like 0 times any number. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 100 is 0. 0 times infinity is 0. That's how I look at unreliability. That if you're unreliable, if you're not reliable 100% of the time, then you are unreliable. And if you're unreliable, it's akin to 0. Anything you have, anything you are, doesn't matter how hard you work, how smart you are, how talented, how connected, if you are unreliable, it's akin to being nothing. Because people never know whether or not they can trust what you say, whether you're going to come through or not. So to be successful with respect to networking, whether it's personally or professionally, you need to strive to be reliable, and be reliable 100% of the time.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.